The Canadian government continues to push Canada into more and more tyrannical situation. Our government is slowly eroding the rights and freedoms that made this country great under a woke veneer. Mark Carney and the Liberal government are attempting to rob us of everything that allows us to be a free people, free to express ourselves, free to express our religion, free to move around. Slowly but surely, our Charter of Rights and Freedoms is being stomped on, and unless we as Canadians fight against this and fight against this soon, our children are going to have a horrific country to grow up in. Right now in Canada, our incompetent Minister of Public Safety is ramping up the gun buybacks program. Now, study after study has shown that criminals do not turn their guns in. It's law-abiding citizens. They're trying to get any means of self-defense out of law-abiding citizens' hands. Well, at the same time, perfect example, 44-year-old man in Peterborough had a home intruder break in a couple of days ago, defended himself with a butter knife. He is being charged with assault. So, gun buyback program, they're trying to get any weapons out of law-abiding citizens' hands, while at the same time saying, we will charge you if you defend yourself. Canada is turning into a country that valorizes criminals and demonizes law-abiding citizens. Anybody who lives here knows that the culture has gone so far. Victimization. We live with a government that valorizes people who roll fake body bags in our streets, have fake blood on their hands, scream the most vile things you've ever heard into loudspeakers, defend criminals time and time again, give lenient sentences. Humboldt bus driver gets 8 years. Bill C-63, the so-called Online Harms Act, wants to be able to throw you in prison for life for so-called incitement to genocide. It is the inversion of what's true. And these tyrannical governments always do this way. They defend the criminal and they prosecute the law-abiding citizen. It's what we're seeing in Canada. They want to make you feel as though the state has a monopoly on violence. You are unable to defend yourself. You need to rely on the Canadian government in order to do so. This is one of the most alarming developments, but there's many in the pipeline. And the only thing we're fortunate about is the government is so goddamn lazy, despite the fact that Mark Carney says that this is a national emergency, the trade deal is going on right now. Our parliament is still not sitting. They've been out all summer. They haven't sat something like 67% of the time in the past 2.5 years with government being prorogued. It's truly incredible when you look into how little our government works in Canada that there isn't a popular uprising based on that alone. But their first amendments to table go directly at Canadian civil liberties. Bill C2, Bill C4, Bill C63. These are three of the most extreme bills in Canadian history. And the only reason that these are your immediate focus when finally Parliament sits in September, if you're Mark Carney, is because you are attempting to establish tyrannical control of this country without any pushback. Bill C2 allows the Canadian government to deem any Canadian citizen who owns a computer as a so-called electronic device provider. If a Canadian citizen is an electronic device provider and it is deemed to be in the national security interest, the Canadian government will now have the ability to access any of your digital communications. I kid you not, any of your digital communications. If you own a computer and the government deems it in the national security interest. This is a more extreme act than the Patriot Act, which was passed post 9/11. And why do we need this? The only reason that we would need this, and by the way, they hide it in the back of a 100-page bill. The only reason they need this type of oversight is they want to quash dissidents, kill dissidents. I know for a fact on social media, if you hit a certain threshold and are critical of this government, the likelihood that your account is removed is nearly 100%. Nearly 100%. They are quashing dissidents. Bill C2 allows them to access any Canadian's digital communications without permission if they deem it in the national security interest. This is Orwellian. Also included in the bill is access. If deemed in the national security interest, they can also access your mail without any notification. So all mass communications, all digital communications, all mail can be accessed by the Canadian government if Bill C2 passes. This bill cannot be allowed to pass. We have to shout from the rooftops This is the Patriot Act on steroids. They hide all the junk at the back of the bill because they think we're too stupid, which I actually can't blame them for, because the fact that Mark Carney is our prime minister after a decade of Justin Trudeau's disastrous policy, they have good reason to think that little of the Canadian citizenry. But I know we are going to wake up. I know patriotic Canadians who are aware of what's going on in this country, see how dystopian things have become, are ready to fight back. Now, Bill C-4, another authoritarian wannabe bill. One of the major negatives to Bill C-4 is retroactively going back to the year 2000. It absolves the Liberal Party of any responsibility for misuse of any Canadian's data. They've collected millions of pieces of data over the past 25 years. Millions of pieces of data. They automatically collect a large amount when an election has come up. And there are so many different ways they can do it, many of which Canadians are not aware of. But it absolves them of any responsibility for mishandling, misuse of any Canadian's data going back to 2025. Now ask yourself, would you pass this type of a bill unless you know that you had done many illegal things with that data, with our citizens' data? Of course not. Of course not. Bill C-4 cannot be allowed to pass. And I've submitted FOI requests. We need to look into exactly how the Canadian government has misused our data, because it's a big blinking sign. It's so obvious based on this bill, they have misused it. Perhaps most nefarious, malevolent of all is Bill C-63, the so-called Online Harms Act, which is even more extreme than the Online Safety Act, which was just passed in the UK. What this bill proposes, if it passes, is the setup of something they are deeming a digital safety commission. They got that straight out of Orwell. Now, this digital safety commission would feature 10 unelected bureaucrats and an ombudsman sitting on a board in which any Canadian citizen can report to this commission that, I kid you not an action any Canadian's taken, not an illegal activity, not a direct threat posted. They can report any other Canadian citizen if they believe they are likely to say something hateful in the future. I kid you not. You can go to this commission and report people not for anything they've done, but for what you believe they are going to do in the future. This is pre-crime. This is literal pre-crime. This is giving the government the ability to go after you, not for something you've done, but for something they psychically believe you're going to do in the future. It is insanity. It exists completely outside of our current justice system. And if these 10 unelected bureaucrats and ombudsmen, and with our Liberal government, just imagine the type of people who are going to be on this commission, deem it likely you're going to say something hateful in the future. It's so insane. It's hard to believe this is true. Deem it likely you're going to say something hateful in the future. They can put you under house arrest and give you an ankle bracelet. I kid you not, and confiscate all your weapons. House arrest, ankle bracelet, and confiscation of all weapons for pre-crimes in Canada if Bill C-63 passes. This is tyranny defined. Bill C-63 would also allow lifetime imprisonment for so-called incitement to genocide. Like I said, they are going for essentially extreme jail terms for any dissidents of their government. That's the only reason to explain what they're doing, because I hear calls to genocide on our streets every day, and they receive the red carpet rolled out by our police force. It's the only way to explain it. And then it also expands the definition of hate speech to include fomentation of vilification and detestation. With these liberal whack jobs, can you imagine how aggressively they are going to go after Canadians? Anybody who dissidents from the government, does not agree with our government, their continued authoritarian overreach, is going to be pursued heavily. It's a guarantee. It is a permanent destruction of free speech in Canada if this bill were to pass. We need to stand up. We need to say no. Bill C-2, Bill C-4, Bill C-63, gun buyback program. And we need to bring back castle laws. Canadians need to be able to defend themselves. Hey, you don't want to get beaten up? Don't break in, don't invade someone's house. It's goddamn common sense. I'm going to be holding rallies Saturday, September 13th on Parliament Hill. If you're interested in coming out, please let me know. We actually have patriotic Canadians actually have to physically hit the streets. I'm at 10K subs on TikTok, and our government doesn't like political dissidents. Make sure you're following me on YouTube, youtube.com/@FightForCanada2025, youtube.com/@FightForCanada2025. All my uncensored content there. Patriotic Canadians are going to win.